Welcome to Math with Miss Ross. Today's topic is algebraic expressions. We're going to talk about evaluating them and translating them. So as you think about what is an expression, we got to think about it in mathematic terms. We know that when we express ourselves, that could be with our face, it could be with our hands, but what does it mean to have a mathematical expression? So let's take a look. What is an algebraic expression? That is a mathematical phrase that can include numbers, variables, symbols, and operations. So in this case, we have x minus 3. And so the reason why this is an expression, number one, it does not have an equal sign. And then you also have here 3 times 2n. You could say that in a different way. You could express it in a different way. And then we have 4 divided by m plus 1. And these are all algebraic expressions. So, and we got to keep in mind when you are expressing multiplication, since you are in algebra 1, we want to express it using the first one as opposed to any of these other ones. It makes it less confusing. And then we definitely don't express multiplication using that. And I want you to think about why that is. Well, we don't want to confuse that with the variable x. So that's why we use the first one the most. And division is written with the fraction bar. We are no longer going to be using the symbol. So when you see the fraction bar, you might want to say x over 3, but I want you to think about it as x being divided by 3. So when you are doing translations of algebraic expression, you have to have in your mind what words mean addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. What are the words that will make you add? What are the words that will make you subtract, multiply, or divide? So if we were together in person, I would have you to shout out those. But if you want to think about it before I give you some words, I want you to pause the video in order to give yourself some thinking time. What words would make you add? What words would make you subtract? What words would make you divide, multiply? What are those words? All right, if you've given yourself enough thinking time, I'm going to reveal to you those words. And these are words that you want to have in your mind when you're reading a sentence, so you'll know what operation symbol you need. All right, so a couple of these I put stars by because these are the ones that you will see. You'll see sum, you'll see difference, you'll see product, and you'll see quotient. They are what they are: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. But some of these will make you use parentheses. So I wanted to dig into that, and we'll dig into that in a little bit after we do some practice. So how do you translate? The first question says m increased by 5. Well, if you don't know what increase by means, you want to look at your cheat sheet real quick. You see the word increase is in addition, in the addition row. So that means increase by means to add. So m increased by 5 would be m plus 5. That you have just now translated that expression. So this says 7 times the product of x and t. What is product? Product means what? All right, to multiply. So when you're multiplying, you could represent it with all of these, but the one that we are going to focus on the most would be this one right here, 7xt. 7xt is in the proper algebraic form. Whenever there's a number in front of variables or a number next to variables, the operation is multiplication. All right, so number 3 says 11 less than 4 times a number. So before we even get to this one, I want to give you a little caveat. There are some things that we call turnaround words. And this is one of the songs that I usually play for my students. Turn around every now and again. So every time you see these certain words, I want you to hear that song in your head. So I'm going to write these out, and I suggest that you write them down. If you don't want to write them down, you got to get them in your memory bank some way. So the first one we're going to talk about is less than. This one is not the symbol less than, okay? That is not what we're talking about. When you have something less than something else, we are really talking about subtraction. Now, when you see that turnaround word, that means everything is going to be turned around. I'll show you an example when we go back to that one. Another turnaround word is more than, or phrase, is more than, fewer than. What you notice about these, we have a lot of thans. So when you see the less than, more than, fewer than, you're going to turn it around. More than would be addition. Fewer than would be subtraction. And then we have one more turnaround. Subtracted from. Now, if I say 8 subtracted from 10, you might want to say 8 subtracted from 10. Nope. 8 subtracted from 10 would be a turnaround. 10 minus 8. So these are where you want to take a little bit of a pause and really get this ingrained in your soul. These are going to make it turn around. All right. Let's get back to the other presentation. So 11 less than 4 times a number. We just found out this is one of my turnaround words. So even though less than means to subtract, it's not going to be 11 minus, it's going to be something minus 11. That's really the key to this. It's going to be something minus 11. Yes, 11 came first, but this is my turnaround. So 11 less than 4 times a number. How do you represent 4 times a number? 4 and your variable. Whatever letter you choose, whatever letter makes you feel warm and gooey on the other side, that's the letter you put there. This is showing the product of a number, and 4 subtracted by 11. All right, I hope my extraness really is going to help you to understand that turnaround really means to turn it around. 2 more than 6 times a number. Here we go again with the more than. Go ahead and pause that video and try it on your own before you get the answer revealed. Hopefully now you have got the answer revealed and you see that it's 6 times a number plus 2. 2 more than, meaning it's going to be something plus 2. The quotient of a number and 12. Quotient is not a turnaround word. So let's see how you represent that. Pause that video. All right, you should have got some letter, doesn't matter what letter, divided by 12. So which of the following expressions represent 7 times a number decreased by 13? Go ahead and pause the video so you can have some think time. All right, so your answer should have been number 2, 7x minus 13. Let's look at another one. Which of the following expressions represents 28 less than 3 times a number? Pause that video. If you got number 2, you are right. You have successfully not fallen into the trap of turning it around. And then you need to be able to do the reverse. So once you're able to figure out what a worded sentence means symbolically, you should be able to take those same symbols and get those into word. So how would you say number one? One way to say it is the sum of 8 and A. How would you say number two? One way of saying it is the ratio of M to R, M divided by R. You can write them differently as well. All right, so which of the following verbal expressions represents 2x plus 9? The only way that we can really do this one is by picking number one, even though increased by is not a turnaround word. Addition is commutative, so that means it can go either way. That's the only one that would show that there was addition happening. So another way I could have said this would be 9 more than twice a number, or twice a number added to 9, or twice a number plus 9. All right, I will make sure that you have plenty of practice with that, because we need to now move on to what does it mean to evaluate. What's great about what we can do with evaluation is that we can use Desmos. So we're going to focus our time with using Desmos in order to evaluate. But let's talk about what evaluating means. To evaluate a variable expression, you want to substitute the given numbers for each variable, and you use order operations to solve. Now that's when you're doing it by hand. So I'm going to show you one example of doing it by hand. I want to use a harder example. All right, so we have 8y minus 3x squared plus 2n. So if we were to evaluate this using our hand or our pen and paper, all you have to do is substitute y with 20, x with 5, and n with 3. So let's see what that looks like. Since it's right next to each other, that's multiplication. 8 times 20 minus 3 times 5 squared plus 2 times 3. So that's just a direct substitution. Then you will use the order operations to solve it. So order operations say the parentheses and exponents first. So that would be 25. And then your next step would be to multiply left to right. So we get the 160 here. Then we multiply again, get the 75 there. Then we multiply again, get the 6. And then we subtract left to right. 85 plus 6 will give us 91 as our answer. What's great is that Desmos allows us to input all of these things into it, and we can do it without delay. Now, let's talk about a couple of things with Desmos. There's one issue with Desmos, and that's going to be your practice. This one is going to be your practice. But Desmos cannot use the letters X and Y. So I want to make sure that you are clear on that. If you use X and Y, Desmos is going to try to graph for you. So if I were you, I would make sure that when I'm using Desmos calculator, let me see, SOL Desmos calculator VA. It's a little bit different than the website that we normally use. So this is the testing calculator. I want to give you an example of what I'm talking about. So it's not that I'm just rambling. I want you to know what I mean. So let's say, for instance, I was given this problem for Desmos, 8y minus 3x squared plus 2n. So if I was to input that into Desmos, 8y, 8 lowercase y, minus 2n, well, let's say 2x equals 9. You see how it's already trying to graph? So what I would do is I would transfer these into new letters. So instead of X and Y, I would use A or B. Just remember, if you have X and Y in a problem, to replace it with a different letter. So make sure that you replace X and Y with A or B. And so since I have 8Y, I'm going to say 8B minus 3A squared plus 2N. And what you want to do when it says add a slider, you want to say all. Now, my B value is the same thing as my Y value. Just make sure you keep it straight. So my B value is 20. My X value or my A value is 5. And my N value is 3. And you see how we get the same thing as we got before, 91. So Desmos is going to be your best friend when it comes to evaluating. Yes, we want to know how to do it by hand, but if this tool is given to us and it is setting us, it's going to set us up for success, why not use the tool? But just keep in mind that X and Y cannot be used. Let's try another one. We're going to try 5R plus 2, number 1, times the quantity of D minus the cube root of 8. So let's go ahead and input that into Desmos. I tried earlier to copy and paste and it didn't work. So I'm going to just do it by hand. To access the cube root, you want to hit functions and then you'll make sure it's on miscellaneous. Then you'll hit this one right here. This one is letting you know that it's not a square root. So I'll put a 3 here, then I'll put my 8. And then we want to close out those parentheses. All right, again, you want to add a slider. So I'm going to click all. All right, let's go back and see what my R was. All right, it says separate your bag of candy into color sets. Well, I'm going to give some values for this. I didn't realize that we had to do a whole task. So we're going to give some values. Let me input some values in for us. And I'll make sure when you have your practice that you'll have values here. So it won't just be randomness. All right, we'll say that this is 5. We'll give this to be a 3, a -2, 7, 4, and we'll make that one a 1. So our R is 7. All right, our R is 7. And our D is -2. Is that all of our letters? It is. So our answer to this question would just be 27. Do you see how simple that is? Again, Desmos can really be a great tool for you to use in order to evaluate. And so the last thing that is going to take us out of this video is I want to make sure that you are guaranteed to be prepared for expressions that may require you to write parentheses. So someone said 5 times the sum of twice a number and 8. So this says 5 times the sum. So if 5 is being multiplied by a sum, then you have to make sure when you multiply 5, it's literally being multiplied by a sum. 5 multiplied by the sum of twice a number and 8. This is how that will look. If you just said 5 like this, that's not the same thing. This is only 5 times twice the number plus 8, but 5 times a sum, 5 would be needing to be multiplied by a sum. Here's another example. the difference of a number and 7 divided by 14. So this is a difference of a number, and 7 being the whole difference is being divided by 14. Or if you wrote it out horizontally, the difference would have needed to be in parentheses, and then you divide it by 14. So those are the only things that I could think of that may trip you up when you are trying to do these. So I hope that you have understood this lesson. If you have any questions, please reach out to christinerawls@gmail.com.